The palace was never meant to be quiet. For thousands of years it had breathed with sound. Soft music in the high halls, voices of servants, the steady steps of guards. Even at night the palace lived. Now it was silent. The great lights along the ceiling flickered, then dimmed. Long shadows stretched across the marble floor like dark fingers. Somewhere far away, a low alarm sounded once, then died. Empress Veilora stood alone in the central chamber. Her long silver robes touched the floor, unmoving. Her crown rested heavy on her head, but her shoulders felt heavier. She listened. No guards answered her call. No aides rushed in. The palace that once held thousands now felt empty, like a hollow shell drifting in space. Behind her, two small figures clung to each other. Lyra and Senna, her daughters, watched the wide doors with wide eyes. Their skin glowed softly in the dim light, colors shifting with fear. They were too young to understand war, but old enough to feel danger. "Mother," Senna whispered, "where did everyone go?" Veilora did not answer at once. She walked to the tall window and looked out at the stars. Ships burned in the distance. Not enemy ships yet. Her own. Loyal ones. Destroyed from within. The betrayal had been quiet. That was the worst part. She turned back to her daughters and knelt so her eyes were level with theirs. "You must be brave," she said softly. "I have to leave for a short time." Lyra shook her head. "We go with you." Veilora closed her eyes. She wanted that more than anything, but the truth cut too deep. "I cannot," she said. "It is not safe." Before the girls could protest, a distant sound echoed through the palace. Footsteps, many of them, metal boots striking stone. The enemy was already inside. Veilora rose and moved quickly. She led her daughters through a side corridor, far from the main halls. They passed broken doors and fallen banners. Symbols of her rule lay torn and burned on the floor. She stopped at a narrow service hallway. It was small, plain, and almost hidden. Most nobles never noticed it. Someone was there. A man stood near a cleaning cart, frozen in surprise. He wore simple gray clothes. His hair was dark and messy. His hands held a cloth and a small tool. His eyes widened when he saw the Empress. His name was Eli Carter. He was human. Eli had been cleaning the lower halls when the alarms cut out. He had heard shouting earlier, then nothing. He stayed because leaving meant losing the job. Losing the job meant losing the money he sent home. Money his own child needed. He never expected to see the ruler of half the galaxy standing in front of him. He dropped the cloth and stepped back. "Your Majesty," he said, unsure if his voice should be loud or soft. Veilora studied him. In another time, she would have passed without a glance. A janitor was invisible, a human even more so, but this was not another time. She felt the truth settle in her mind like cold iron. Every noble had fled. Every commander had chosen a side. Everyone with power had betrayed her. Everyone except this man. "Eli Carter," she said. His eyes widened again. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You have a child," she said. "Yes," he replied. "A son, back on Earth." Her gaze did not leave his face. She searched for fear, greed, pride. She found fear, yes, but not the kind that runs. The kind that stays alert. More footsteps echoed closer now. Veilora made her choice. "I am leaving my daughters with you," she said. The words hung in the air. Eli stared at her, certain he had misunderstood. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "With me?" "Yes." He glanced at the two small alien girls hiding behind her, then back at the Empress. "I clean floors," he said. "I don't even have a weapon." Veilora reached into her robe and removed a small object. A royal seal. It glowed faintly with ancient power. "This mark gives you my authority," she said. "But more important, it gives you my trust." She placed it in his shaking hand. "If my enemies find my daughters," she continued, "they will use them to control the Empire, or they will kill them to break me." Eli swallowed. "Why me?" Veilora's voice lowered. "Because you are still here." A loud crash echoed from the main hall. A door breaking. The girls pressed closer to Eli without thinking. He felt their small hands grip his clothes. He stiffened, then slowly placed himself between them and the sound. Veilora noticed. Her eyes softened for a single breath. "Protect them," she said, "as you would protect your own." She turned away before he could answer. She activated her communicator and began walking toward another exit. "Mother!" Lyra cried. Veilora stopped but did not turn back. "I will return," she said. "I promise." Then she was gone, her footsteps fading into the palace's deep veins. Eli stood there, heart pounding. The seal in his hand felt warm, heavy. Another crash. Closer. He looked down at the girls. Their eyes were filled with fear, but also something else. Hope, thin and fragile. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay. We need to move." He pushed the cleaning cart aside and opened a small door hidden behind it. A service tunnel. He had cleaned it many times. It led into the lower levels of the palace, places nobles never went. "Stay close," he said. They nodded. As they moved into the tunnel, the palace lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed the halls. From far behind them, voices echoed. Alien voices. Harsh. Searching. "They are here," someone said. Eli led the girls deeper into the maze of narrow paths. Pipes hissed. The floor was cold. He knew these tunnels better than any map. He had scrubbed every corner, fixed every leak. Once he had thought the job was beneath him. Now it was the only reason they were still alive. They reached a small chamber where old machines slept. Eli closed the door and locked it with a simple manual latch. He turned off the last light. They sat in the dark. Senna began to cry silently. Eli crouched down and spoke softly, like he used to with his son during storms. "It's okay," he said. "I'm here." Lyra looked at him. "My mother is the strongest being in the Empire," she said. "Why did she leave us with you?" Eli did not know the answer. Not fully. He only knew that running was not an option. Leaving them was not an option. Fear was there, loud and sharp, but something stronger sat beneath it. Duty. Footsteps passed nearby. Voices argued. Someone kicked a door. The latch held. Eli wrapped his arms around the girls, shielding them with his body. His heart raced, but his breathing stayed slow. He listened. He waited. In the silence of the forgotten palace, a human janitor made a promise without words. No matter who came through that door, they would not reach the children. Not while he was still breathing. The tunnels beneath the palace were colder than Eli remembered. Metal walls sweated with old moisture. Pipes hummed softly, like the palace was still breathing in its sleep. Eli moved carefully, one hand on the wall, the other guiding the two girls behind him. He kept his steps slow and quiet. Every sound felt too loud. Above them, the palace was being torn apart. They could hear distant shouting now. Orders barked in sharp alien tongues. Heavy footsteps passed overhead, shaking dust from the ceiling. The enemy was not searching carefully yet. They were confident. They believed the daughters would be found quickly. That belief was their mistake. Eli led the girls through turns that twisted and doubled back. He chose paths that looked useless, narrow, forgotten. Places only a janitor would know. Once he stopped and waited, holding his breath while a patrol passed so close he could smell the sharp oil on their armor. Senna pressed her face into his side. Lyra stood taller, her fear hidden behind pride, but her hands trembled. "You clean all this?" Lyra whispered. "Yes," Eli whispered back. "Sometimes twice a week." She looked around, surprised. "No one important ever comes here." He gave a quiet smile. "That's why it's safe." They reached an old storage room filled with broken machines and empty crates. Eli shut the door and dragged a heavy container in front of it. Then he sat on the floor, back against the wall, and finally allowed himself to breathe. His hands were shaking. He looked at the girls again. Up close, they seemed even smaller. Their skin changed color with emotion. Faint waves of blue and violet moving across them. Alien, yes. Royal, yes. Children. "I need to ask you something," he said softly. "Can you stay quiet for a while?" They both nodded at once. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small picture chip. He had kept it close for years. It showed a young human boy smiling, missing one tooth. "My son," Eli said. "His name is Noah." Senna tilted her head. "He looks happy." "He is," Eli said. "And I promised him I'd always come back." The words settled heavy in his chest. Above them, something exploded. The palace shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Senna gasped, and Eli pulled both girls close without thinking. Hours passed slowly. At some point, the search grew quieter. Either the enemies thought the daughters were gone, or they were planning something worse. Eli knew they could not stay there forever. He checked the seal the Empress had given him. It still glowed faintly. He did not know how it worked, only that it mattered. "We're going to move again," he said. "There's a place lower down. Old emergency shelter. It's hidden." Lyra frowned. "You speak like a guard." Eli shook his head. "No, I speak like a father." She did not reply, but she did not argue either. They moved again, deeper, farther from the light. The shelter was small but strong, built long ago for disasters that never came. Eli sealed it behind them and finally allowed the girls to rest. Senna fell asleep quickly, curled against his side. Lyra stayed awake. "You are afraid," she said. "Yes," Eli answered honestly. "Then why are you not running?" He thought for a moment. "Because fear doesn't decide what's right." She studied him with bright, sharp eyes. "Most beings would trade us for safety. Most beings aren't worth following," Eli said. Something in her expression changed. Days passed in hiding. Eli rationed food. He ate last, sometimes not at all. He cleaned wounds when Senna scraped her arm. He listened when Lyra spoke about lessons she would never admit she missed. They became quieter together, closer. On the third day, the power returned. Screens flickered on throughout the shelter. Public broadcast filled the room. A new ruler spoke. He wore the symbols of the Empress's council. His voice was calm, confident. "The traitor Empress has fled," he said. "Her heirs are presumed dead." Lyra stood slowly. "That is a lie," she said. "Yes," Eli replied. "And lies are dangerous." The screen changed suddenly. Security footage appeared. Eli froze. It showed a corridor, the same one where he had first met the Empress. The image zoomed in. A still frame appeared. Eli Carter, Human Janitor. Below it, words flashed. "Person of interest." "They are looking for you now," Lyra said quietly. Eli nodded. He had expected it. Senna woke and clutched his sleeve. "Are they going to hurt you?" He knelt and met her eyes. "They can try." The shelter door shook. A voice called out, "Open, by order of the council." Eli stood and positioned himself in front of the girls. "No," he said firmly. The door burst inward. Armed figures rushed in. Eli raised the royal seal. It flared with light, stronger than before. Symbols burned into the air. The attackers hesitated, confused. Lyra stepped forward beside him. "By blood and crown," she said, voice steady. "You stand before the heirs of the empire." The soldiers looked at each other. Senna took Eli's hand. In that moment, the palace learned something new. The daughters were alive, and they were not alone. Somewhere far beyond the palace, across stars and battlefields, Empress Veilora felt it. A shift, hope, and the quiet strength of a human who refused to kneel. The soldiers did not move at first. The light from the royal seal faded slowly, leaving the shelter in a soft glow. The air felt tight, like everyone was holding their breath at the same time. Eli stood firm, shoulders tense, his body placed fully in front of the girls. One of the soldiers lowered his weapon slightly. Another did not. "This means nothing," the second soldier said. "The council rules now." Lyra stepped forward another step. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight far beyond her size. "The council rules only because my mother is gone. And she is not dead." A murmur passed through the group. Eli felt Senna's fingers tighten around his hand. He squeezed back once, gently, to let her know he was there. "You will leave," Eli said. His voice surprised even him. It did not shake. And you will forget this place. The first soldier hesitated. He looked at the seal again, then at the girls. Finally, he stepped back. This is above us, he said. We report. They withdrew slowly, never turning their backs. When the door closed again, the silence returned, heavier than before. Eli exhaled and leaned against the wall. His legs felt weak now that the danger had passed, at least for the moment. They will come back, Senna whispered. Yes, Eli said. But not the same way. Lyra looked at him closely. You spoke to them like an equal. I spoke to them like someone who wasn't afraid, Eli replied. She considered that. They did not stay in the shelter after that. Eli knew it was no longer safe. The enemies now knew the daughters were alive, and they knew a human was protecting them. That made him a target. They moved again, this time upward, toward an old maintenance tower near the outer edge of the palace. It was rarely used and connected to old communication lines. As they walked, Lyra asked questions. Why do humans protect their children so strongly? She asked. Eli thought as they walked. Because children are the future, he said. And because someone once protected us when we couldn't protect ourselves. Even when they are not your own? She asked. He nodded. Especially then. They reached the tower by night cycle. Through a cracked window, stars spilled in like cold fire. The galaxy looked peaceful from here. Eli knew better now. Inside the tower, Eli found a medical kit. He had not noticed how badly his arm hurt until he sat down. A deep cut from earlier had soaked through his sleeve. Senna saw it and gasped. You're hurt. It's nothing, Eli said. She shook her head firmly, copying a gesture she must have learned from palace healers. Sit. He did. She cleaned the wound with careful hands. Lyra watched closely, learning. Eli realized then that the girls were not just being protected. They were watching, learning how he acted when no one ordered him to. You could still leave, Lyra said quietly while Senna worked. Take a ship. The seal would protect you. Eli met her gaze. And leave you? She did not answer. Where I come from, Eli continued. Walking away from children in danger isn't survival. It's failure. Senna finished wrapping the wound and smiled. Proud. Eli smiled back. Later, while the girls slept, Eli activated the old communication panel. Most channels were locked, but one weak signal remained. A public service band. He hesitated, then began to record. My name is Eli Carter, he said slowly. I am a human. I work as a janitor in the royal palace. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The Empress's daughters are alive, he continued. They are safe, and they are not weapons. They are children. He ended the message and sent it without knowing who would hear it. Across the palace, across the city, across the empire, the signal spread. Not loudly, not officially, but enough. By morning cycle, whispers moved faster than orders. Workers who had hidden returned quietly to their posts. Servants brought food to places they pretended not to see. A medic left supplies outside the tower door without knocking. Eli noticed everything. So they are helping, Senna said softly. Yes, Eli replied. People don't like hurting children, even when leaders tell them to. Lyra stared out at the stars. My mother said humans were fragile. Eli chuckled once. We break easy, but we don't stop. That same day, the council made its move. Drones filled the sky above the palace. Screens across the city lit up with a single image. Eli's face. This human has kidnapped the royal heirs, the council leader announced. He is dangerous. He must be stopped. Lyra's skin darkened with anger. They are turning you into a monster. Eli shrugged. I've been called worse. But when Senna looked at him with fear, his chest tightened. They will hurt you, she said. Maybe, he answered honestly. But not today. The first attack came at dusk. Not soldiers. Not yet. They cut the tower's power. Darkness fell instantly. The stars vanished from the window as shields activated outside. Eli stood and moved the girls behind the strongest wall. He listened. He counted steps. Metal scraped against stone. A breach. Eli grabbed a heavy tool from the wall. It was not a weapon, but it was solid. When the attackers entered, they did not expect resistance. They expected fear. Eli struck fast, hard, and loud. He knocked one down and pushed another back into the doorway. He took a hit to the side and grunted but stayed standing. Lyra pulled Senna farther back. One attacker raised a weapon. Before it fired, the floor shook. The tower door exploded inward. Palace guards rushed in wearing old colors, loyal ones. They overwhelmed the attackers in seconds. When it was over, the guard captain looked at Eli and bowed. "We heard the message," the captain said, "and we remembered who we were." Eli nodded, too tired to speak. That night, as the girls slept safely for once, Eli sat alone by the window. He thought of his son. He thought of Earth. He thought of how strange it was that the smallest job in the palace had placed him at the center of an empire's fate. Far away, Empress Veilora stood on the bridge of her warship and watched the same stars. She smiled for the first time in many cycles. The human had not failed, and the galaxy was beginning to understand why. The morning after the attack felt different. The palace was still damaged. Smoke rose from distant towers. Broken glass glittered across wide floors like frozen rain. But something had changed in the air. It was not fear anymore. It was waiting. Eli noticed it first when he stepped into the corridor outside the tower. Workers were there. Not many, just a few at first. A food carrier parked near a wall. A maintenance crew pretending to repair a panel that did not need repair. None of them spoke to him, but when they looked at the girls, their eyes softened. They knew. Word had spread. Lyra walked beside Eli, her posture straight, her chin high. She was still afraid, but she no longer hid it behind anger. Senna stayed close, holding his sleeve, but she looked around with growing curiosity instead of panic. "They are watching us," Senna whispered. "Yes," Eli said, "but not like before." They reached a large open hall that once hosted ceremonies. Now it was empty, lights broken, banners torn down. In the center stood an old public broadcast pillar, tall and covered in dust. Lyra stopped walking. "That can reach the outer worlds," she said slowly. Eli followed her gaze. "Does it still work?" "It should," she replied. "If someone lets it." Eli looked around the hall. No guards. No council officers. Just shadows and silence. "Then we don't wait anymore," he said. They approached the pillar together. Eli brushed dust from the controls. His hands hesitated for only a moment before he touched the panel. The system came alive. Lights spread across the hall. The pillar hummed, low and steady. A countdown appeared. Senna's eyes widened. "What are we doing?" Eli knelt beside her. "We're telling the truth." The broadcast went live. Across the capital. Across the empire. Across trade stations and border worlds. Screens flickered on without warning. The image was not polished. Not prepared. It showed a damaged hall. A tired human with a bandaged arm. Two small alien girls standing beside him. "My name is Eli Carter," he said. His voice was calm, but firm. "I am not a soldier. I am not a hero. I clean floors." He paused and looked at the camera. At the unseen billions. "These are the daughters of Empress Veilora," he continued. "They are alive. They are not weapons. They are not prizes." Lyra stepped forward. "I am Lyra of the Crown," she said clearly. "And this is my sister, Senna." Senna waved once, shy but brave. "Our mother trusted this human with our lives," Lyra continued. "Not because he had power, but because he stayed when others ran." The broadcast shifted. Footage played. Security recordings from the palace. Eli shielding the girls in the tunnels. Eli bleeding while standing between them and armed attackers. Eli refusing to leave even when escape was possible. The truth, raw and unfiltered. Eli spoke again. "I don't care who rules," he said. "I care that children don't die for power." The feed ended. Silence followed. Then the galaxy reacted. In the palace, council members shouted. Orders were given, then cancelled. Some officers refused to obey. Others simply walked away. On distant worlds, citizens argued in public squares. Workers stopped machines. Merchants shut down ports. The image of a human janitor protecting royal children spread faster than any weapon ever could. The council responded quickly. They called Eli a liar, a manipulator, a thief. But their words felt thin. They had armies. They had ships. Eli had truth. That night, the palace shook again. But this time it was not an attack. It was movement. Loyal guards returned in force. Not organized at first. Not perfect, but real. They surrounded the broadcast hall, forming a living wall. The guard captain from before stood at Eli's side. "The council has ordered your arrest," he said quietly. "But half the palace refuses." Lyra looked at Eli. "They are afraid now." "Yes," Eli replied. "People get afraid when lies stop working." The council made one final decision. If they could not control the daughters, they would destroy the symbol protecting them. They sent a strike team. Silent, fast, trained to kill one man. Eli felt them coming before he saw them. The palace had taught him how sound moved through stone. He handed the seal to Lyra. "If anything happens," he said, "you run." "No," she said immediately. He smiled sadly. "That's not a choice." The attack was sudden. Energy shots tore through the hall. Guards fell. Smoke filled the air. Eli pushed the girls behind a pillar and turned back toward the attackers. He had no armor, no weapon worth naming, only himself. He ran forward. He knocked one attacker down with sheer force. Another struck him in the chest, sending him crashing to the floor. Pain exploded through his body, white and sharp. Senna screamed. Eli tried to rise, a weapon aimed at his head. Then something impossible happened. A guard threw himself in front of Eli, taking the shot. Then another. Then another. More guards rushed in. Workers followed. Servants. Engineers. People who had never fought before but refused to step aside. The attackers were overwhelmed. When it was over, the hall was a ruin. Eli lay on the floor, blood on his shirt, vision blurred. Lyra knelt beside him. Her hands glowed faintly as she pressed them against his chest, using a basic healing gift she had never needed before. "Stay," she whispered. "Please." He breathed in shallow breaths. "Still here," he murmured. High above the planet, a warship broke from hyperspace. Empress Veilora stood on its bridge, staring at the live feed now flooding every channel. She saw her daughters. She saw the blood. She saw the human who refused to fall. Her hands clenched slowly. "All ships," she said, voice cold and clear. "Return fire. The throne is reclaimed." The galaxy listened. By dawn, the council was finished. Some surrendered. Some fled. Some vanished into history. The Empress returned to a palace that no longer felt hollow. She walked through broken halls without guards, without ceremony. When she entered the broadcast hall, everyone froze. She went straight to Eli. She knelt. The sight shocked the entire room. "You did what my empire could not," Veilora said softly. "You protected what mattered." Eli struggled to sit. "Just doing my job," he said weakly. She looked at her daughters, alive and standing tall. "No," she said. "You did more." Lyra and Senna moved to Eli's sides, holding his hands. The Empress rose and faced the room. "Let the galaxy remember this day," she declared. "Not as a victory of power, but of choice." And far across the stars, something old and quiet shifted. The idea that humans were small. The idea that strength wore crowns. Those ideas began to break. Because a janitor had stood his ground. And the galaxy had watched. The palace did not celebrate. There were no songs, no banners raised, no loud cheers. The halls were still broken. Smoke still clung to the high ceilings. Medics moved quietly from one injured body to another. Guards stood watch with tired eyes and steady hands. Victory felt heavy. Eli woke in a medical chamber near the inner gardens. Soft light filtered through tall glass walls. For a moment, he thought he was back on Earth, waking in a hospital after a long shift gone wrong. Then he felt the weight on his hands. Lyra and Senna were there, asleep in chairs pulled close to his bed. Each held one of his hands like they were afraid he might disappear if they let go. Eli smiled faintly. "You're still terrible at personal space," he whispered. Lyra's eyes opened at once. She straightened, relief washing across her face in shifting colors. "You are awake." Senna stirred and leaned forward, pressing her forehead gently against his arm. "You promised," she said softly. "You promised you would stay." "I'm still here," Eli said. His voice was weak, but steady. "Takes more than that to get rid of me." A shadow moved near the door. Empress Veilora entered the room alone. She wore no crown, no armor, only simple robes, dark and clean. She stopped a few steps away and looked at Eli for a long moment, as if making sure he was real. "You should be resting," she said. "So should your empire," Eli replied. To the surprise of everyone in the room, the Empress smiled. "The council is gone," she said. "Some arrested, some fled. The rest will never hold power again." Lyra lifted her chin. "And the people? They are confused," Veilora answered honestly. "But they are listening." She turned to Eli. "Because of you." Eli frowned. "I didn't ask for that." "I know," Veilora said. "That is why it matters." In the days that followed, the palace changed. Not all at once. Slowly, carefully. Workers were no longer invisible. Servants spoke without fear. Guards asked questions instead of waiting for orders that felt wrong. And everywhere Eli went, people watched him. Not with awe, with thought. Some bowed. He asked them to stop. Others thanked him quietly and walked away. A few stared with anger, unable to accept that a human had shifted the empire's balance without firing a single shot. Eli spent most of his time with the girls. He walked with them through the inner gardens, where water flowed gently and broken statues waited to be repaired. He listened while Lyra spoke about what kind of ruler she did not want to become. He held Senna's hand when nightmares woke her at night. "You don't have to stay," Veilora told him one evening. "A ship waits. Earth is not far." Eli looked at the stars beyond the glass ceiling. "I know." "Then why are you still here?" the Empress asked. He did not answer right away. "Because they still need me," he said finally. Veilora nodded slowly. "Then so do we." Not everyone agreed. Beyond the capital, former allies of the council gathered in secret. They whispered about weakness, about tradition broken, about a dangerous idea spreading among the lower ranks. The idea that power could be challenged by choice. They did not attack the palace again. They chose something worse. They turned their eyes toward Earth. The message reached the palace late. A border fleet had been sighted. Not openly hostile. Not peaceful either. A warning. Veilora read the report in silence. Lyra stood beside her. "They are using his home," she said quietly. "Yes," Veilora replied. "They believe it will make him step aside." Eli heard anyway. "You don't have to do this," Veilora told him when he confronted her. "I will handle it." Eli shook his head. "They're not threatening you. They're threatening my people." "That is how power works," she said. "No," Eli replied. "That's how bullies work." The council chamber filled quickly. Generals argued. Advisors shouted. Plans clashed. Eli listened, then raised his hand. The room fell silent. "I'll go," he said. Veillora's eyes hardened. "Absolutely not. They want a symbol removed," Eli continued. "So let them see it up close." "You are not bait," she said. "I'm a janitor," Eli answered. "We deal with messes others don't want to touch." Lyra stepped forward. "He will not go alone." The Empress looked at her daughter sharply. "No. He taught us to stand," Lyra said. "Now let us stand with him." Silence followed. Veilora closed her eyes. When she opened them, the decision was made. A single ship left the capital that night. Carried no weapons worth boasting about. No grand banners. Only a human janitor, 2 young heirs, and an Empress who had learned something new about strength. They met the border fleet near Earth's outer colonies. The opposing commander appeared on screen, smiling thinly. "You've made a mistake," he said. "This human has made your empire soft." Eli stepped into view. "I cleaned your palace floors," he said calmly. "I know what gets ignored." The commander laughed. "You think your presence matters?" "No," Eli replied. "I think your fear does." Behind him, Lyra activated a public channel. The broadcast spread instantly. Not orders, not threats, just truth. The Empire watched as Eli stood between fleets, as the daughters of the Empress refused to hide, as Veilora chose dialogue over fire. Across Earth, humans watched too. They saw one of their own standing calm in the shadow of warships. They saw him refuse to kneel. The border commander's smile faded. He realized too late that attacking now would not erase the symbol. It would carve it into history. The fleet withdrew, not because of force, because the cost of being seen as monsters had become too high. When the ship returned to the capital, the palace gates stood open. Not as a fortress, as a home. Eli stood on the landing platform, looking out at the city. "I still have floors to clean," he said quietly. Veilora laughed softly. "Not anymore." He shook his head. "Someone has to remember where the dirt comes from." Lyra and Senna took his hands. In that moment, the Empire crossed a line it could never return from. It chose example over fear, and the galaxy felt it, because the strongest force was no longer the throne. It was the choice to stand between harm and the innocent, and a human janitor had taught them how. The changes did not stop when the ships returned. They spread quietly, like water finding cracks in stone. Across the Empire, reports arrived every day. Workers refused cruel orders. Guards protected civilians before property. Minor rulers asked questions they had never dared to ask before. Some worlds welcomed the change. Others resisted it with clenched fists and old pride. Empress Veilora watched it all from the High Council chamber, now rebuilt but still marked with scars. She allowed the cracks to remain. They were reminders. Eli stood near the back of the room as he always did. He did not sit on thrones. He did not wear symbols. He listened, cleaned when asked, and spoke only when needed. That made people listen harder when he did speak. Lyra and Senna attended lessons again, but the lessons were different now. History was no longer told as a clean line of victories. Teachers spoke of mistakes, of lies, of how empires fell when they forgot why they existed. The girls asked difficult questions. Sometimes the teachers had no answers. At night, Eli still told stories, not of kings or warriors, but of small moments, of earth rain, of his son learning to ride a bike, of standing up after falling down. "Will we meet him?" Senna asked one night. "Yes," Eli said. "Someday." Lyra watched him closely. "You miss him." Every day he thought. Yes. The truth could not be avoided forever. Earth was changing too. Human governments sent messages. Some respectful, some afraid, some demanding. They wanted to know why one of their citizens stood at the center of alien power. Eli hated politics. Veilora understood that. "You have become a bridge," she told him one evening as they walked through the gardens. "Whether you wanted to or not." Eli stopped near a broken statue that once showed a ruler standing over kneeling subjects. It had been left shattered on purpose. "Bridges get walked on," he said. "Yes," Veilora agreed. "But they also connect worlds." The first real test came without warning. A distant system went dark. Not rebellion. Not war. Silence. Ships sent to investigate did not return. Signals vanished. Whole planets went quiet, like someone had turned off the stars. The threat was unknown. That frightened the Empire more than any enemy it understood. Generals demanded action. Fleets prepared for war without knowing who they would fight. Eli listened to the reports, his jaw tight. "What if it's a natural event?" he asked. "Then it is the deadliest one in our history," a general replied. Lyra studied the data feeds, her young mind sharp. "The silence spreads in patterns," she said. "Not random." Veilora turned to her. "You see intention." "Yes," Lyra said. But not cruelty. That stopped the room. Eli felt a strange chill. Then it's not an enemy that hates, he said. It's one that doesn't care. The Empire stood at the edge of panic. Veilora made a choice that shocked everyone. She sent one ship, not a fleet, and she put Eli on it. You trust them to listen, a general protested. I trust him to speak, Veilora replied. The ship traveled into the silent zone. No signals, no lights, no movement. Inside the ship, the quiet pressed down hard. Senna held Eli's hand the entire time. Lyra stood at the main screen, watching. They found the source at the heart of the system. A massive structure, ancient and broken, drifting between stars. It was not a weapon, not alive, not hostile. It was a machine left behind by a long-dead civilization. A machine meant to protect. It had been damaged. Now, it erased everything it could not understand. Eli stared at the readings. It's like a broken door, he said. It slams shut on anything that moves. Can we destroy it? A pilot asked. Yes, Lyra answered slowly. But it would take the system with it. Veilora's voice came through the channel. Then we don't destroy it. Silence followed. Eli stepped forward. Let me talk to it. The pilot blinked. It doesn't speak. Eli shrugged. Neither do broken machines. But they still listen to how you treat them. He suited up and left the ship alone. No weapons. No armor. Just a human in the dark. He reached the machine's outer shell and began working. He cleaned. He repaired small systems. Rerouted power. Removed debris. Fixed problems no one had bothered to notice because they were not dramatic. Hours passed. The machine slowed. Its deadly field weakened. Finally, it stopped. The silent system breathed again. Stars came back. When Eli returned to the ship, exhausted and shaking, Lyra stared at him with awe. You didn't fight it, she said. No, Eli replied. I fixed what was broken. The story spread faster than any battle. A human solved a galaxy-level threat without firing a shot. The message was clear. Power did not always need force. Sometimes it needed care. Back at the capital, crowds gathered without being ordered to. Not to praise a ruler. To thank a man who reminded them they could choose better. Veilora stood before the Empire and spoke plainly. We will rebuild differently, she said. Not taller, not stronger, kinder. Not everyone cheered, but no one laughed. Later, Eli stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lyra and Senna joined him. You could rule, Lyra said quietly. He shook his head. No, I'd be bad at it. You already lead, she said. Only by example, Eli answered. Senna leaned against him. That's the best kind. A message arrived from Earth. His son. A recorded message, smiling, older now. Dad, Noah said. They showed your picture at school. My teacher said you're important. But I already knew that. Eli's eyes filled. I'm coming home, Eli whispered. Veilora heard him. So am I, she said, stepping beside him. The future stood open. Not perfect, not safe, but better than before. Because the Empire had learned its greatest lesson. That the strongest force in the universe was not fear, not power, not even unity. It was the choice to protect. And that lesson came from a human janitor who refused to walk away. The return to Earth was quiet. No escort of warships followed Eli's transport. No banners were displayed. The Empress insisted on it being that way. If this future meant anything, it had to begin without fear or display. From orbit, Earth looked the same as always. Blue, white, alive. Eli pressed his hand against the window and felt something in his chest loosen for the first time in a long while. Senna slept against his side. Lyra stood straight, watching the planet with careful eyes, already thinking like a ruler even when she tried not to. Veilora stood behind them, hands folded, silent. This is where you learn to protect, she said at last. Eli nodded. This is where I learned to be protected first. The landing did not make the news at first. That was also on purpose. Eli stepped onto the ground of an Earth spaceport that smelled of fuel and rain. The air felt heavier than palace air. More real. More human. He saw his son across the platform before Noah saw him. Noah was taller. His hair was longer. His face older in small ways that hurt and healed at the same time. Eli dropped his bag. Noah turned. For a second, the boy just stared. Then he ran. Eli dropped to one knee just in time to catch him. The impact knocked the breath from his lungs. He did not care. They held each other while the world kept moving around them. "You said you'd come back," Noah said into Eli's shoulder. "I always do," Eli replied, his voice rough. Veolora watched quietly from a distance. She did not approach. This moment was not hers to claim. Lyra and Senna watched too. Senna smiled through tears she did not try to hide. Lyra stood still, her face calm, but her skin shimmered with emotion. "So this is family," Lyra said softly. "Yes," Senna answered. "This is why he stayed." Earth reacted slowly at first. Governments debated. News channels argued. Some welcomed the visitors. Some feared them. Some tried to use them. Veolora refused special treatment. She walked city streets. She spoke to workers. She listened more than she spoke. That frightened some leaders more than fleets ever had. Eli returned to normal life as much as possible. He fixed broken doors in his building. He cleaned. He cooked. He helped Noah with schoolwork. But things were not the same. People recognized him sometimes. Not with cheers. With quiet respect. A woman at a market paid for his groceries and walked away before he could refuse. A mechanic fixed his old car and said nothing. A child left a small drawing on his doorstep. A stick figure holding hands with stars above it. Noah noticed everything. "Are you famous now?" he asked one evening. Eli smiled. "No. Just visible." The girls stayed close. They learned Earth customs. They laughed at simple things. Rain surprised them the most. Senna loved it. Lyra pretended she did not, but stood in it longer than necessary. One night, Lyra sat beside Eli on the apartment roof, watching planes cross the sky. "My mother wants me to return," she said. "I know," Eli replied. "She wants me to rule one day." Eli nodded. "She asked what I learned here," Lyra continued. "And what did you tell her?" "That power should kneel to responsibility," Lyra said. "And that rulers should learn from janitors." Eli chuckled softly. "You could stay," he said. She shook her head. "I must go back. But I will not go back unchanged." Senna hugged him tightly the night before they left. "You are still our father," she said fiercely. Eli swallowed. "Always." Veolora came to see him alone before departure. She carried no guards. No symbols. "I offered you a place beside me," she said. "You refused." "I didn't refuse you," Eli said. "I chose where I'm needed." Veolora inclined her head. "That is why your name will not be carved into stone." Eli frowned. "It won't." "No," she said. "It will be taught." The ship left Earth at dawn. Noah watched until it vanished into the sky. "Will they be okay?" he asked. Eli placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, they'll make it better." The galaxy felt the change over time. Not fast, but steady. New laws formed. Not written in fear. Written in memory of a choice made in a dark palace. Children of all species were protected under shared rules. Workers gained voices. Power was questioned without violence. Some resisted. They always would. But they were fewer now. Because every time someone tried to rule through fear, the story followed them. The story of a human janitor who stayed. Years passed. Noah grew. Eli aged. Life remained imperfect, but honest. One day, a message arrived. Lyra stood on a balcony, older now, wearing no crown. Senna beside her, bright-eyed and strong. "The Empire stands," Lyra said. "But it stands differently." Senna leaned into view. "We wanted you to see." Behind them, workers and leaders stood together. Not equal, but accountable. Eli watched the message twice. Then once more. Noah smiled. "You did that." Eli shook his head. No, I just didn't walk away. Far across the stars, statues were built of great ships, of famous rulers, of old victories. But in schools, in homes, in quiet conversations, another image lived. A tired man in simple clothes, standing between danger and children who were not his own. No crown, no weapon, just choice. And the galaxy remembered, not because it was forced to, but because it wanted to. Because when the moment came to decide what strength truly was, a human janitor answered without hesitation. And the stars listened,